Battle Through the Heavens, Grand World. Chapter 153 Rogue. The abundant origin monarch key in his body made Xiao Yan feel carefree. He pondered for a moment. He took out the jade bottle that Xiao Yu had given him. Xiao Yan had heard of this body-tempering liquid before. According to the color of the liquid, it had the same effect on different levels of people. That was to strengthen the body. The strengthening here was not an ordinary strengthening. It was an enhancement that broke through a level, which meant that after using it, the toughness of the body would not be inferior to any emperor. Li Daoyuan's gift was exactly what he needed at the moment. Clenching his lips, Xiao Yan got up and walked towards the place where the sound of flowing water could be heard. Since he was going to use the body-tempering liquid, he naturally had to use it in an open area. If he was in the bamboo forest, the huge energy emitted from it would be enough to destroy this bamboo forest. Xiao Yan could not help but be curious when he saw the Xiaoao playing by the river from afar. This fellow was a fire-type spirit beast, but he was not afraid of water at all. After thinking for a while, he could only understand that it was because of the monarch flame. Currently, in Xiaoyan's body, if the monarch flame was treated as a room, the Xiaoyi would be equivalent to the owner of the room, and the Xiaoao would be equivalent to guest. A guest who had caught up to him could enter and exit the monarch flame freely. He could also possess the monarch flame. Just like the blue flame ruler, he could use the monarch flame to launch an attack. He intimately patted the Xiaoao's big head and let it play to the side. Xiao Yan saw that there was no one around, so he took off all his clothes and jumped into the water naked. Then, he stabilized his body in the turbulent river water, poured out the body-tempering liquid, and smeared it on his body. The body-tempering liquid worked quickly, and Xiao Yan's skin quickly became red. Soon after, traces of hot air spread out from the surface of his body, causing the surrounding river water to churn. The heat on the surface of his body quickly entered his body. Xiao Yan could only feel his muscles and bones burning, and intense pain immediately came from his body. In the pain, Xiao Yan could clearly feel the vitality in his body changing at a slow speed. Under the observation of the latter's powerful soul power, the strength on the surface of his body was also slowly increasing. Kai. In the turbulent river water, Xiao Yan sat firmly in the middle. The enormous energy from his body kept hitting the river water around him. Water splashed in all directions. At the same time, it also caused the stones at the bottom of the river to fly up and fall back into the water, creating a few meters high splash. Awoo! Just as Xiao Yan gritted his teeth and endured all the pain in his body, he suddenly heard the sound of the Xiaoao from afar. Xiao Yan's mind moved and he forcefully opened his eyes. The red color on his body had retreated. With a wave of his hand, the sound of the air shaking could be heard. His physical strength had indeed become much stronger. There was no time to rejoice. Xiao Yan frowned and looked in the direction where the sound of the Xiaoao came from. It seemed that there was a vague sound coming from someone. Xiao Yan was startled and jumped out of the water. After randomly putting on his clothes, he rushed into the distance. Swoosh! A sword light quickly slashed at the Xiaoao. The Xiaoao let out a low roar and agilely dodged the sword light. After that, it bared its teeth and roared at the figure in front of it. Go away! Seeing that the Xiaoao was about to lunge at him, the person turned pale with fright. He waved the sword in his hand and screamed in a threatening manner. Xiaoao, are you all right? Xiao Yan rushed over from the forest. His eyes swept across the Xiaoao's body. Seeing that the latter was not injured at all, his nervous heart finally relaxed. He then looked up at the person in front of him. When he saw the person in front of him, Xiao Yan could not help but be slightly stunned. An extremely beautiful girl was staring at him and the Xiaoao with a red face. One of her hands was holding a long sword and pointing at the Xiaoao. The other hand was holding a white towel, tightly wrapping her body. You, rogue! The woman looked at the man who suddenly appeared and instantly screamed out. The long sword in her hand fell to the ground with a thud. Both of her hands tightly held onto the towel and turned around to shout out in panic. Xiao Yan looked at himself. Because he came in a hurry, he only wore pants and his upper body was naked. No wonder he was called a hooligan. Xiao Yan was someone who had been in the world for decades. He still had this bit of composure. He put on his clothes unhurriedly and patted the Xiaoao's big head. He looked at the girl who had turned around and said with a smile, "Go and put on your clothes. If you have anything to say, we'll talk about it later." After saying that, Xiao Yan turned around and left with the Xiaoao. After hearing Xiao Yan's words, the girl became anxious. She wanted to get angry, but she was worried about her current state. When she heard that there was no longer any sound behind her, Linhe turned her head and saw that he had indeed left. The female gritted her teeth and her face could not help but turn a lot redder. Today, while everyone in the sect was training, she secretly came here. Seeing that there was no one around, she wanted to take a bath in the river. Just as she was taking a bath, a spirit beast came running out of nowhere. When it saw him, it jumped into the water and swam over. The scene just now had happened. Damn hooligan, I didn't know that the spirit beast that thinks highly of me was actually seen. Bastard, I must make grandfather punish him out of the sect. The female hatefully said. Then, she hurriedly ran to the shore, picked up her dress, and hid in an empty place to quickly change. I said, you really know how to pick a place. You actually ran into a girl taking a bath. Leaning against a large tree, Xiao Yan looked at the Xiaoao that was curled up beside him, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. When the Xiaoao heard this, it snorted a few times and used its big head to intimately rub against Xiao Yan's body. When Xiao Yan saw this, he wanted to reach out his hand to touch the soft back of the Xiaoao. Suddenly, his expression changed. His eyes looked behind him, whether intentionally or not, and he could not help but reveal a bitter smile. Swoosh! The next moment, a long sword was placed on Xiao Yan's neck. Xiao Yan looked up and saw a woman in a white dress staring at him angrily. Pervert! Spirit beast rogue, you are also a rogue. Hearing the woman's vicious voice, Xiao Yan smiled bitterly. Just as he was about to get up, the woman coldly snorted and her sword once again approached Xiao Yan's neck. Her voice was cold. Don't move. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Xiao Yan could only continue to sit on the ground and pacify the Xiaoao. He raised his head to look at the newcomer. She was wearing a white dress, and her figure was pretty. She was slim and graceful, and she was even prettier than Bai Qian. Seeing the girl's furious expression, Xiao Yan helplessly said, Miss, both my spirit beast and I have no intention of offending you. After I came, I didn't see anything that I shouldn't have. Furthermore, I have been waiting here specially to apologize to you. Would that rogue do that? The woman hesitated for a moment, then she coldly snorted and said through gritted teeth, sharp mouth. Don't think that I will let you off lightly. Why were you naked when you came? Xiao Yan said helplessly, you can take a bath in the river, but you won't allow me to take a bath. Besides, you also looked at me. I didn't see anything. I'm a little more generous. Can we call it even? After saying that, Xiao Yan prepared to act. Don't move. When the girl saw this, she shouted. Her face turned red because of Xiao Yan's words. She stared at Xiao Yan with her beautiful eyes and said, you are the disciple of that elder. How dare you run away from the drill? Xiao Yan scratched his head and said, actually, I am not a disciple of Purple Radiance sect. The girl couldn't help but be delighted when she heard this. She shouted, great. You have broken into the Purple Radiance sect. I'm going to capture you and hand you over to the elders. As she spoke, the long sword in her hand trembled. It was about to reach Xiao Yan's neck. Xiao Yan was slightly startled when he felt the cold air coming from the long sword. If it wasn't for the fact that his body had just been strengthened, this trace of sword ki was enough to make his skin bleed. It seemed like this long sword wasn't an ordinary sword. It was estimated that ordinary low-level spirit weapons wouldn't have this kind of power. However, for a monarch spirit to have such a spirit weapon, it seemed like this girl. Her status in the Purple Radiance sect wasn't ordinary either. Don't attack. Actually, I was invited by someone. Xiao Yan saw that the girl was about to make a move, so he quickly said. Oh, you actually have an accomplice in the Purple Radiance sect. Tell me, who is it? I want to catch all of you in one fell swoop. Hearing this, the joy on the girl's face became even greater. She stared at Xiao Yan and shouted. Xiao Yan smiled and looked at the girl playfully. He said, it's your sect master, Xiao Wang. Hearing this, the joy on the girl's face instantly froze. Chapter end. Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.